Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everyone. My name is Antoine Baillargeon, and I'm the program coordinator here at the Ottawa branch of the National Association of Federal Retirees. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which the branch office is located is traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. So on behalf of the Ottawa branch, I'm pleased to welcome you to today's webinar on nutrition, presented by Meg Stickl-Kroeker, owner of local business Aim Fitness, and guest speaker Susan Alsembach, nutritionist at Escape Spa and Wellness. Unfortunately, Meg had a schedule conflict today and can't attend the presentation, but Susan, our guest speaker, will be presenting as normal. So Susan has been a practicing nutritionist for 6 years at Escape Spa and Wellness, as well as the director of the wellness team there. So the focus of her practice is working with clients who have type 2 diabetes, digestive problems, and weight loss, and helping them understand how food can work for them and their lifestyle. So in today's presentation, Susan will be talking about how to eat well on a strict budget, nutrition tips for diabetics, and how to develop healthy eating habits, and even more. So veuillez noter que le webinaire sera présenté en anglais, mais la participation bilingue est toujours encouragée. I want to give special welcome to anyone here who is not yet a member of the association. We hope that these webinars will inspire you to join us. And to our members, we hope that these webinars will encourage you to maintain your membership. Remember that you can always give the gift of membership. More information on that will be in a follow-up email. After today's webinar, the Ottawa branch, as I mentioned, will send you a follow-up email with instructions on how to access the recording of today's webinar, more information on how to give the gift of membership, and some information on Susan and Aim Fitness. There will be a question and answer period at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions throughout the session, please type them in the chat box, and Susan will answer them during the Q&A period. So that's it from me. I'm going to turn over the presentation to Susan. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Antoine, and thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning. I really appreciate this opportunity of speaking with you. So as Antoine mentioned, any questions that you have or queries, just pop them in the chat box and we will go through them at the end of the session. I am also bilingual, so if you do have any questions and you're not sure how to formulate them in French, please don't hesitate. So today I will just start the screen sharing for you to be able to see what we're talking about. Right, so my background is originally in nursing, just a little side note, and as Antoine mentioned, I retrained and I'm now practicing as a nutritionist. So the thing that I enjoy the most about this is that I'm able to combine my nursing background with obviously everything to do with nutrition and well-being in general. So today we will be looking at good food on a budget and seeing the various ways that we can accomplish this, things to look out for when you go grocery shopping that you might not be aware of. Labeling is one of the things, so we're definitely going to be talking and looking a little bit about that. We're going to be looking at about meal planning as well, the different ways that we can go about it, how it can be really helpful to you, especially when we're looking at budget and organization. And obviously, to start with, I am briefly going to touch on the various food groups that we have. The reason I'm doing this is I think it's important for people to just have a basic understanding of the different food kind of groups that we hear a lot about in social media, so that when you are out grocery shopping, this just makes the whole thing much easier and it makes sense to you and what you need to accomplish in your diet and nutrition with regards to your well-being. So that's the overall outline for today. So we will be starting with protein. We hear a lot about protein. As I mentioned in the news, the value of it. Why do we need protein in our diet? It is very important because at 2 stages in our lives, we need a lot more than the average person. So we have a very big growth spurt from the moment we're babies till the moment we're young adults. And that's the time of life when we need a huge amount of protein. Then between about our mid-20s to about our mid-50s, early 60s, our protein requirements stay about the same. And then when we reach our mid-50s, Our protein requirement goes up a little bit for various reasons. Our body finds it much harder to digest and uptake and actually absorb and use. So often people think, oh, I don't need as much protein, when in fact they might need a little bit more than they realize. So protein is used by the body to help build and repair muscles, ligaments, tendons, bones, things like that, that really are so important. Obviously, as we are getting older, we want to make sure that everything is as strong and as healthy as it can be. It is very important with regards to the immune system, so making us stronger, less likely to pick up bugs, viruses, germs, things like that. Or if we have cuts and bruises, it means that our body will repair itself just so much quicker. So making sure that we have a little bit of protein in each meal is one of the easiest ways to do that. So again, just helping you, these are just things to bear in mind for when you are out grocery shopping, you know what to look for. Obviously, our sources of protein, most people know, are meat, dairy, and eggs. However, for those that are vegetarian, they achieve a complete protein by combining grains and legumes. So it's very easily done. It doesn't even have to be done in the same meal. It can be done by having maybe some grains for lunch with a meat or not, depending if you're a vegetarian. And then in the evening, you could have like some legumes with a salad, something like that. But the fact that you've had them both within a 24-hour period means that your body is able to create a complete protein. The next food group that we're going to be looking at are obviously our fruits and vegetables, which in Canada, when you look out the window today, can be a bit tricky. But obviously we can still make sure that we do have an adequate intake. We can look at things like frozen fruit, frozen vegetables, very easy to prepare, very easy to store. They're obviously not going to go off. I know that there's a lot of discussion in the internet and things like that about fresh is best, obviously. But on the other hand, having frozen vegetables and fruits is just as beneficial to you in the long term. So if it's one or the other, why not? If you can only do frozen, that's great as well. So obviously the various colors that we have in our fruits and vegetables are that way because they have different vitamins, phytonutrients, minerals in them. So when we hear eating the rainbow, there really is a lot of logic to that. And again, they're very important because they help to create our hormones. They help to stabilize our blood sugar levels. So these are food groups that are very good to incorporate, again, at most meals, because if you are looking to maybe cut down on snacking, to have a more stable energy through the day, your fruits and vegetables are really going to be the best bet to help you achieve that. And as I said, amazing amounts of energy in those. The next one that we're going to be looking at are grains, or often we talk about starches. These are your things, food groups such as pasta, rice, barley, bulgur wheat, any of the grains that we can think of, wild rice, things like that. They're a great source of fiber. They're going to help things moving in your gut. Sometimes that can get a bit slowed down as we get older. So again, having an adequate intake of grains throughout the day at different meals will really help to keep things going. Again, they provide a stable source of energy to the body. And the difference between whole grains and any refined grains is that your whole grains are going to give you a much longer lasting energy source than anything that's been refined. The reason being, when they have taken off the husk of a whole grain, you're left with immediate source of energy to the body. So that means that when we eat these refined grains, we have a quick source of energy, and then often we get tired. Whereas when we have a whole grain, the source of energy is much longer because the body literally has to break that grain down to get to the energy source. So if you are looking to have more stable energy, or you're looking to help regulate blood sugar levels because you're pre-diabetic, you're diabetic, whole grains are really, really essential and will definitely help do that. Moving on from grains, we hear of fat, and I think fat gets a bad rap. We often talk about fat as just one element, and there are various fats. We have our healthy fats, which are your things like avocado, olive oil, nuts, salmon, fish, all sorts of things like that. They're amazing for you. They help to reduce any inflammation in the body. So again, you know, we find in the winter, sometimes joints get tighter. So including healthy fats in your diet can definitely help with that. We sometimes find that with the darker weather, we get a bit sluggish and we get tired. We find it hard to focus. These foods can definitely help to improve all of that. And it's not, again, by making it, you know, a specific thing, but as you start to build up a varied diet, these are easily integrated into your day-to-day. And again, so easy to have. You can even have the frozen avocado. You can keep those in the freezer. Handy, easily added to a salad. Obviously, you have to let them defrost, but you know, they're there. So it's a great way of doing that. And another thing that they help do is provide, again, a nice long-term source of energy. So thinking of type 2 diabetes, thinking of energy levels, an amazing food to have. The other fat that tends to get demonized is the fat from meats and things like that. Now, obviously, we don't want to have too much of it, but it isn't bad for us as such. So it's kind of understanding that there's that balance between the healthy fats that really want to be your main source, and then any of the other fats from the meats and things that we cook. You can always eat, but it's just a smaller amount than those of the healthy fats that we want. So now that we've covered just like the major food groups and sort of understanding their role within the body and how they help to give us energy and fuel us and just promote general well-being, one of the things that I find as a nutritionist and seeing food labeling and things like that is sugar, which plays, unfortunately, a huge role in the development of type 2 diabetes. So I will be sending out through Antoine after this event a small document with some names of hidden sugars, which I'm going to briefly touch on now, just so that way you know and can see what I'm talking about when you're out grocery shopping. So sugar is not amazing and is not a great food source that we actually need in our day-to-day diet. Any natural sugars are great for us, but any refined sugars really do more harm than good. They have a huge effect on the brain. So often I find that when clients have a diet with a lot of processed and refined sugars in them, so sweets and candy and things like that, when we eat it, we have this huge rush of feel good. And very shortly afterwards, I find generally people tend to feel tired and sluggish. And so it leads to very uneven energy through the day. We get these peaks of energy and then we get very tired. And when people get very tired, what do? They reach for something else that's sweet and sugary to kind of fill what they feel is a need of energy, when in fact it's just energy that's out of whack, if you want. So that's one of the things it does to the body. It can be also quite irritant to the skin. A lot of people find that they have very dry skin or kind of like a type of acne, things like that. And that is due to sugar getting through from the gut into the body. And it's just not good. It creates a lot of inflammation. It's very acidic. And again, it can have issues on our joints because of the acidity builds up, creates inflammation. So everybody I find tends to have their Achilles heel when it comes to sugar. Nobody has exactly the same reaction to it if we have too much in our diet, but it can wreak havoc just about anywhere that you want within the body. Following on from that, we will be looking at, oh, sorry, that slide is in the wrong place. Okay, the effects of sugar on the body. So we know from a lot of studies that overindulging in sugar leads to a huge amount of calories in the body which are not needed. As much as 13% of our diet in North America comes from added sugars within the body. We obviously have a huge increase of our risk of stroke, heart problems, weight gain. Anything to do with the circulatory system is hugely impacted by an overload of sugar. So this is one of the reasons that I find that a lot of packaged food over here, unfortunately, has a lot of sugar and a lot of hidden sugars. As I said, the hidden sugars will be in the document I send you. The reason why they put them in, these hidden sugars, is it because it prolongs shelf life of these products. So we don't necessarily stop to think about it, But a muffin or a cake that has been made in a factory and then packaged, put on a lorry, sent to the store, you know, we don't, again, stop to think how long has it been in that packet, but it's normally probably been in there about easily a week or two, if not more. And the only way that it can stay tasty and fresh is by putting a lot of sugar and, as I said, hidden sugars in. So obviously anything that we can make at home means that we control how much sugar we put in it, and we're never going to over sweeten something. We just wouldn't eat it. It would be too sweet. So that's definitely something to think of when you are out grocery shopping. It's just sort of like, well, how fresh is this really? Maybe I could make something simple, a batch of it, and then freeze it. So following on from this, again, labels, super important. You can see in this example, a lot of people, the doctors especially, even when I was nursing, the doctors would tell patients to look at the nutrition facts. And as you can see, there's the cholesterol, there's your normal sodium, your carbohydrates and the fats and things like that. There's your sugar. It says that there's 22 grams in this example for a container of 2.5 ounces. If you were to look to the right where there's that little circle, I know you may find it a little hard, it's quite small, but ingredients on any packaged products go from the most to the least amount within that product, meaning that your 4 to first 5 ingredients tend to make up about 80% of that product. If we look at this example, corn syrup, excuse me, corn syrup is a hidden sugar. High fructose corn syrup is another hidden sugar. Then they're very kind, they actually put sugar down. We go further down and there are a lot more. About halfway down, there's a cornstarch. That's another type of hidden sugar. The thing to know that's really, really important, and if this is all you take away from today, I will be really happy. These hidden sugars do not figure, the quantity of them in your product will not figure under the nutrition facts. That's because legally, they're not considered sugar. That's why we call them hidden sugars. So the only sugar in this example that will figure under the nutrition fact is literally the sugar. All the corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, all of that is not counted in that nutrition fact. So it's very misleading, I find, for people, especially if they are pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic. People buy things just looking at the nutrition facts. They think they've made a good choice because they see that there's only 10 grams of sugar in it, when in fact in the actual ingredients there are so many hidden sugars, but the marketing companies don't want us to know this. So that's why at the moment there's this workaround, which it would be nice if it were to change at some point, but who knows how that's going to happen. So following on from the sugars, it's important to see the difference in the type of sweeteners. So no matter what we use to sweeten our food, it's sweet, it's sugar. This just gives you a vague idea of the amount of calories these different types of sugars have that have been refined. When I work with most of my clients and we do talk about sweetening things like tea and coffee, maybe a cold beverage, I generally suggest for people to use either honey or maple syrup. The reason being, it is the natural sweetener that has been the less refined possible. So it means that you actually know what you're putting in. And a lot of these other sugars that you can see here, so the stevia, the coconut sugar, the brown rice syrup, they have been refined. There's not much left in them. There are no sort of vitamins or nutrients. You can see that in the maple syrup, there is some potassium. In the honey, we do have antioxidants. So that's generally speaking why I recommend to clients to use those. And again, you can sweeten them to how much you want. Products like stevia and the date sugar have a very high, what we call glycemic index. So people that are pre-diabetic or diabetic, it means that they're going to send their sugar levels sky high. Whereas the honey and the maple syrup will still send them high, but not quite as high. And again, another problem is that these kind of sweeteners, we actually put a lot more in than we realize, and it just gives it that extra sweet taste. That's why they've been manufactured that way. And a lot of these are used in, as I said, the muffins and cakes and sweets and candies that we use. because there is a certain addictive nature to their flavor. That's why we buy these products again, because our body gets used to those tastes. We kind of forget a little bit what natural sweetness tastes like. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for this manufactured sweetness that is in the candy and the sweets and things like that. So it's just to help you as consumers. We have a budget that we work with. And I think it's really important that people can make a choice where they want to put their money, right? You've worked hard for this money. And if you're buying things that fundamentally you know aren't the best for you, then at least you have a choice as to when and how much of this product you do actually want to use. The next one we're going to look at is, following on from this, is your normal sugar, as I said, versus your processed sugar. The difference being, it's similar to the idea of the whole grains that I touched on earlier and the refined grains. So anything that has been refined, as you can see the sugar on the left-hand side, means that it really is going to spike your blood sugar level, because again, there's nothing hiding that molecule of sugar. It's just free for the body to have. It uses it quickly, you get a spike, and then you get that dip. Whereas when we start to have sugar that comes from food, vegetables, fruits, there's a lot of fiber in it, and that fiber is going to slow down your blood sugar levels. So it's going to mean that your blood sugar is going to go up, but it's not going to go up in a peak. It's going to go up a bit more gently. And the fact that it's more gentle means that your body has more energy over time, rather than a lot of energy really, really quickly. The advantage again is that there's a lot of vitamins and minerals in anything that is a fruit. So really it's a win-win. Like, you just can't lose on this one. We like sweet things. We can just eat our fruits, and they will probably in the long run be cheaper than a lot of the candy that we buy without even realizing it, or the muffins or things like that that we can pick up at the supermarket. And if you really want to think about it, fruit is nature's candy. I mean, a nice ripe strawberry in the summer, or those summer fruits, are so good to eat, versus, I don't know, a jelly bean, or I can't remember what they're called over here, but it's just not the same thing. And frozen fruits can be used in candies, they can be used, they can be used in smoothies, they can be used in cakes, they can be used as snacks. So they really are amazing. And you can, they're in your freezer, they're there to hand if you need them. Do you think, Antoine, you could pop out the first poll for me?
Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. Okay. So thinking of sweetness, I thought this would be an appropriate time to put this poll out, just to kind of see how do you eat, when you do find that you're stressed, or are you bored and you want that sort of sweet things, why is it that we reach out to these things? I'd be just really interested to hear from you people, just see how things feel to you.
So you can answer the poll on your screen. You should be able to see it. The first question is, why do you eat?
And I find we can eat at different times of the day for different reasons too. Right? I can see that some people say it's habit, sometimes it's emotion. I find it's the evening snacking sometimes that tends to be, I would say, some people's weak point, but often it's sort of this habit of, oh, it's the evening, I'm watching TV, therefore I need to snack. Some people eat because it's just, they've stopped a certain routine at work, they come home and they are keeping that routine. Or, as we were talking just beforehand, we're home, the fridge is easy access, we walk past and we actually grab something out of the fridge without necessarily being hungry. It's there, we think, why not? So it's kind of taking a moment to really think, why do we eat? Why do we eat? Is it because we want to feel better? Is it because it makes us feel good? Going back, to the idea of those hidden sugars, they do release hormones that make us feel that, oh, I feel good. And again, unfortunately, you have the sugar spike after. So it would seem that most of you eat for good health, which is great. I'm so happy to be here. But it is important, and I think, people do sometimes lose a little bit track of why we eat. Obviously, we want to eat for pleasure too, and that's something that we will be covering later on.
So there seems to be a problem with the poll, I think.
Is that because it keeps going up and down? So I wasn't sure if that was normal or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's because, unfortunately, for some reason, the 3 questions are together instead of separate. So we might have to go on without the polling, unfortunately. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Thanks for trying. Do you take it down or do I take it down?
I'll take it down, thanks.
Okay.
Or you might have to do it on your screen as well.
So there we are. That's fine. All good. Okay, so we will proceed without the poll. Not a problem today. So again, building into the idea that, food isn't necessarily cheap at the moment, that we want to have an idea of what we're eating and how we can eat better while still enjoying our food. One of the things that I find can be very helpful with regards to this is meal planning. So meal planning can be very, very helpful, although the term sort of planning might sound quite strict and restrictive. It is absolutely not that at all. It really, really isn't. I find that when we meal plan, it allows us to think a little bit more about what we want to eat, about how we want to eat it. Are we having friends over? What is our week looking like? Do we want to have some meals in that plan that are quick to make and some that take a bit longer, just depending on our schedule in the evening? It allows us to say, hey, why don't we have some friends over? It also allows you to maybe look at some new recipes or meals that you might have always been wanting to try out. When we actually carve out that time to do it, we're more likely to actually go through with it. So the small amount of time that it takes to actually start thinking about this and put it into practice means that you are much more likely to then actually use it and see the benefits of it. There are many benefits to meal planning. These are just a few. One of them, though, thinking of how things are now, is it does allow you to save money. It means that when you go to the grocery store, you are actually buying for the food that you want to make, that you know that you're going to make. It means that you're less likely to pick up these 2-for-1 deals where we pick it up, we are full of good intentions because we think, oh, I can do this with it, or I'll sort it out later, and it ends up sitting in the bottom of our fridge. We don't use it and we end up throwing away. So that really is money just going into the compost if you do use one. So meal planning does really allow us to have a certain structure, but that is also very flexible. Meaning that when you plan for a week, if you know that you have certain meals that you're making that week, once you've gone out and you've done the grocery shopping for those meals, it then means that you can flip them around depending on maybe your daily schedule has changed and you are home one night later than another. So it just means that you can have that flexibility within the meals that you're actually preparing. So meal planning really, really is a great tool to start using how it works best for you. So one of the ways I find of getting started with this is by starting to make a small list of meals that you know that you like, that you know that you make, that you're familiar with, and that make you feel good. You can make a list of it on your phone, on a piece of paper, anywhere that works for you. You can change your plan according to the seasons. I find that we eat very differently in the spring and summer than we do in the autumn and winter. We're looking for more warming foods, more soups and stews and broths and things like that. Whereas come the spring and summer, we're looking for slightly lighter foods, maybe slightly more colourful. Again, thinking of local markets where we can get vegetables from, or even, as I said, the frozen section, we can still use those vegetables in salads too. It means that you can incorporate any dietary needs for any health concerns that you might have. So you can take in mind, as we've talked about, the various, hidden sugars, take that into consideration. And what can you replace a product that you don't want to use anymore by something else? So it does just give you a really good structure to start working with. So that way you waste less, you are more organized. It takes a certain stress out of your day, because I know that a lot of people, when we don't know what we're eating, it does create a certain stress during the day. We sort of go through it and think, oh, what are we going to eat tonight? Or, if we have somebody over, or even if we're on our own, it's just like, well, I don't know what to eat tonight. And so we open the fridge and we look into it and we're like, oh, we see things, but there's an ingredient missing. So we're not going to make something. The meal planning just means that you have everything there. As I said before, you can flip things around. So that stress is gone, right? You can just go to your list. Oh, maybe I'll do this instead tonight. So it does give you flexibility. So we're going to look at another thing that we can also do to help reduce wastage of food, and that is batch cooking. There's a lot of good things for batch cooking. You would want to first get started with different containers. So you'd want to make sure that you do have containers of the size portions that you'd like to have, whether it's for 1, for 2, or for 3. You could even combine it. One of the things that I'm talking about when I say batch cooking, it isn't just cooking, let's say, 3 portions of a slow cooker meal that you really like, because you're going to eat 2 and you're going to freeze 1, or vice versa. You may be eating 1 portion and then freezing 2 separately. Batch cooking can also be, you open a packet of lentils. Instead of just cooking that 1 portion of lentils for your meal, you can cook the whole bag, freeze your leftovers, and that means that you have a ready-made meal really quickly done once you take those lentils out of the freezer. So starting to use that concept, you can do that for any of the legumes, you can do that for rice, you can do that for meat, anything that you have a large quantity of, especially if it's something that takes a little bit more time to cook. Cook the whole lot, open the bag, as I said, cook everything, take the bit that you need for your recipe and then freeze the rest. It just makes life more simple. You can, as I said, make it into batches, put it in your freezer, however you want to do it. It means that then you have things ready to add to soups, to stews, especially in the winter. But it's a great, great way to avoid wastage and make sure that we actually use what we buy. Again, just as with our fridge, we often buy dried products thinking that they will last forever. Things like legumes, grains, split peas, things like that, they will actually, after a certain amount of time, within about a year or so, they will actually dry up so much that they're really not very nice when you cook them. And I've had the experience myself. So, now I really do try, if I am cooking, especially something like wild rice, which takes a long time to cook, I won't just cook the portion of wild rice for my meal. I'll cook the whole packet and then I'm done. And it's something that you can take out first thing in the morning, you can take out at lunchtime, and if you have a microwave, then you can just defrost it in the microwave. So batch cooking really, really is a great habit to get into. And if we are thinking again of the meal planning concept, it then carries through into our grocery shopping. When you plan, it means that you can actually do, and I'm sure a lot of you probably do when you do your grocery shopping list, put things into section as you would find them in the grocery store, because it avoids you having to, sort of walk around and then, go back to here and go back over there because I forgot something in the dairy section and I'm now in the produce section. So again, it's getting into these little habits bit by bit that just makes life easier and less stressful and less wastage. It means that we, as I said, avoid buying excess things. We just buy what we need. It means that we can also go at times when we know it's quieter, if we don't want there to be a lot of crowds. Lunchtime, first thing in the morning, is a great time to go to the grocery store if you like to have it nice and quiet. Another thing you can also think of, there are lots of price matching options out there. So if you are looking at working within a certain budget, checking out the price matching in various stores can be really, really helpful to you. And another thing to think of when we're sort of tying this all together is when we meal plan, it means that you can take a lot of what we've talked about today and put it into action. So let's say you want to focus on beetroots and carrots and celery one week. You can find 5-6 meals where you are using those vegetables in various ways through the week. So you get variety, you get flavor, you get taste. And then the following week, when you do your next meal plan, that means that you can then focus on a different set of vegetables. So you're not wasting, you're enjoying them, you're cooking them differently, and you are often eating different things, because I find we get bored with what we eat quite quickly. A lot of the people that I work with, so I don't know what to cook in the evening. So sort of working on building up, as I mentioned at the beginning, a list of 15 meals that you like means that you can cycle through them when you are preparing your meal plan. So less wastage, variety, it reduces your stress. It means that you can have friends over. You could even ask a friend to go shopping with you if you wanted to, so that maybe you don't use everything that you're buying. You can split it down the middle for certain things that you're not sure of. So it's just, I think, looking at food as something that works for you instead of against you, and trying to sort of incorporate things that you know is going to work for your lifestyle. And for everybody, it's going to be slightly different, because we all have different health needs. We all, look at food slightly differently. Some of us see it as something that we just have to do. So maybe the pleasure and the enjoyment is a little less than somebody that actually enjoys the cooking and enjoys the preparation and going out and trying new things. So those two meal plan lists are going to look very different. Or somebody who is looking to manage their type 2 diabetes, or somebody who is trying to manage maybe another health concern that they have. Again, it will look slightly different. So it's really just starting to look at food in a positive way, again, because I find that there's a lot of noise out there about how food is good and bad for us. So when you sort of go home and sort of think a little bit maybe about, what I've chatted about this morning, it's not about labeling food as good and bad. The one thing that I kind of tend to live by myself and say to other people is, if we are eating well 80% of the time, so we're eating meat, vegetables, grains, fruits, things like that, we can allow ourselves the 20% to have the birthday cakes from, I don't know, Dunkin' Donuts or somewhere like that, and not feel bad about it. It's about striking that balance and understanding, as I said, how food works for us, which is why I kind of went through those food groups at the beginning. So I hope this has been helpful for you, that there has been something that you've been able to take away from it today that will just maybe resonate with you and help you with your grocery shopping, your budget, and eating better. So thank you very much for having joined me this morning.
Thank you, Susan. That was great. So we do have quite a few questions.
Okay.
So I can read them and you can just answer them. So our first question that we have in the chat is, are some artificial sweeteners better than others?
A lot of the studies out there say that no. A lot of those artificial studies have been shown to be extremely bad for our gut bacteria. So it actually creates a lot of bloating, inflammation, digestive upset. So people tend to be sort of constipated or have diarrhea when they eat them often and frequently. So I would say no. Again, that's why I stick to sugar and maple syrup.
Okay. And our next question, if we have gallbladder and reflux issues, are the good fats still a good option?
Yes, they definitely are. There's ways of combining them that we can look at, because generally it's sort of also looking at the protein content. So we can definitely include the good fats. They would actually be quite beneficial. It may just be looking at the quantities of them or the frequency of them. And a gallbladder, usually some doctors recommend digestive enzymes afterwards, some don't. We do actually still produce bile when we've had our gallbladder taken out. It's just, it is not secreted in the same way as when we have a gallbladder, which actually stores the bile in the body and is only secreted at meal times. When they take it out, it means that the bile is then kind of drip fed, secreted into the body or into the stomach. So the effect that it has is not always as beneficial. What I would stay or limit would be things like red meat, high protein. Protein and starches in the same meal can also be quite tricky for people that have had their gallbladder removed. So if you did have more questions on that, I think it was Rosa, I'd be happy to answer you. But I hope that is good.
That's good to know, because I'm one of these people that have their gallbladder removed.
Okay, so yeah, no, you can definitely, it really, I mean, obviously the gallbladder, again, the medical profession, oh, you don't need it. Well, no, is it a necessity? Well, we have it in the first place, so really it is, but we can live without it. As I said, the body just, it sort of adapts. The body is so clever, it adapts and works differently. But yeah, you can definitely still, again, sometimes there are other health concerns that come into play as well, but sort of like a general overall, yeah, you can definitely still have healthy fats in.
Good to know. The next question is, what is your opinion on monk fruit plant-based sweetener?
A bit the same as the other sweeteners.
Yeah, okay.
I would just, they've been refined, right? They've added things to it. Again, when we look at the labels and the ingredients, they've added things to it. It's commercial, it's money making, right? I hate to say it, a lot of the food industry is, farmers aren't the people that do well, right? It's companies like Nestle, it's companies like Kraft, like, you know, so yeah, I just tend to stay with the natural sweeteners. So honey and maple syrup are your best friend.
The next one is about acidic foods. So this person has to avoid acidic foods. So other than they know about pears and honeydew melon as some low acidic fruits, and do you know of any other fruits that are kind of low acid?
Most fruits are slightly acidic. There are some that are less. Things like, well, yeah, pears, apples tend to be quite low in acidity. I'm not quite sure why they would have to avoid acidic foods. I mean, obviously, then you would want to compensate with more alkaline foods. So things like anything that's like green and leafy would be very alkaline, so would help to balance it out a little bit. So that would be something that I would definitely go more for. Fruits in general, yes, you would want to just stay with something that is more sort of basic, like as the lady was saying, you know, some of the other melons are quite also low in acidity. But acidic foods, red meats is very acidic, so you'd want to stick more to things like chicken, pork, anything that's tomato sauce. You could always compensate by added like some grated apple inside. That can kind of balance it out sometimes. Eating dairy with starches can also reduce acidity. So there's certainly ways of doing it for sure.
Okay. This person is asking, why doesn't Canada list sugar and added sugar on the nutrition facts?
I would love to know why as well. I've read a lot of literature on this, and a lot of the companies are saying that we are with the added and hidden sugars where we were with cigarettes in the 80s. It's money, unfortunately. Money and the companies that want to sell more, that don't want people knowing. And I hate to say it, and even some of the healthy products, when you go down the health aisle, one thing I forgot to mention is, as you do your grocery shopping, if you do see things that say heart health, reduced sodium, reduced sugar, reduced fat, if they've taken something out, you know they've put something in to replace it. So if they've taken fat out, you can be sure that they've added some hidden sugars, because the flavor has to come from something. So we know the fat and sweet are a nice combination, and they make things taste nice. So if they have taken one or the other out, you can be sure that something else has been put in. So I would stay clear of all of those. Just take the full fat, take the normal food, and avoid anything that says that. So why doesn't it list it? I'm afraid unfortunately, I know the Sugar Association in the US is huge, the sugar lobby. It's not quite as big over here, but obviously we are quite tied to the US. And our government would do well, as you say, to ban it, or to at least have it listed.
Yeah, I agree.
It's disgraceful because, as I said, so many people aren't aware of this. And it's such a scam.
For sure.
So yeah. So I'm glad to get the word out to everybody here today.
Good information to
Your
know.
labels.
This person is saying that they love walnuts, and so they know that they have fat in them, but it's supposed to be good fat. So, but how many walnuts would you recommend that you would have each day, or maybe each portion? And is there a better time of the day to eat nuts, like in the morning or late at night? Or maybe you could shed some light on just eating throughout the day in general.
Yeah. So generally speaking, we are looking for most people to stop eating sort of about 7 o'clock, because the body is actually getting ready to go to bed. So any food that we eat later on in that evening is not really going to be used up in the way that it should be. With regards to portion sizes, usually if you were to kind of use your hand as a guideline, you wouldn't really want to be eating more than 1 or 2 portions a day of healthy fats, of the same sort of healthy fat. You would want to vary it up. So maybe at breakfast you have a portion of nuts, lunchtime you could have like an avocado. There's all sorts of ways of doing it, but in itself, a lot of the literature just says if you actually use the palm of your hand, that would be the right portion for you. And yeah, better time, it just depends on the objective of eating them. If it's as a snack, then obviously you'd want to be finished sort of by 7. I do sometimes, for clients that are looking to make changes and that are big snackers in the evening, especially things like candy and things, then it's definitely something we'll look to implement. So to switch out the candy for maybe some maple pecans or whatever nuts that you like, to caramelize them and to have those in the evening instead. And then with the idea of bringing it closer to dinner, making it more of a dessert, but that's sort of a process. So generally speaking, we're looking to stop by about 7:30 is the last time you'd want to eat something.
Okay. This person is asking, do you have suggestions for healthy eating when one goes out to eat with friends or family? So in restaurants and stuff like that.
So there's various ways. If it's something that you do often, you can definitely look at things like having starters. So sometimes it's the portion I find that gets people. Making a mixture of starters can actually be a lot of fun. It's not too much and you get a variety in it. If it's something that you don't do a lot and it really is once in a while, looking to ask to have the salad dressing or any sauces put to the side, so you can put however much sauce or things that you want on it. Simple things like if it's a burger place, then I would swap out the side of fries for a salad, or maybe share your side of fries with somebody who's having a salad, so you're kind of having a bit of both. I think when you go and eat out, though, the pleasure is of eating out. So it's really more the frequency of it that I would kind of look at as well. But definitely sort of, as I said, it's the sauces is one of the big things, the portions. What I often recommend to clients as well is often we tend to sort of eat more than we would because we're out. I don't know why we do that, but we do. So we tend to sometimes have a starter and then we have a main and then we have dessert, but we don't usually do that at home. So we come out feeling bloated and uncomfortable when we should actually feel better for just having gone out for a nice evening. So one of the things you can do is actually ask to see the dessert menu at the beginning. That way you can decide, do you want a starter and a main meal, or do you want a main meal and a dessert, depending what's on the dessert. So that's always a good way, again, of working around it and just not eating too much. And it's really also just about stopping and eating when you've had enough and then asking for a little doggy bag to take home.
Great. Oh, we just had, I was about to say, I think that's all the questions, but looks like we got one more. Is it a good idea to combine ground meat with textured vegetable protein?
Is it a good idea to combine ground meat with?
Textured vegetable protein.
Extra vegetable protein?
Sorry, textured vegetable protein.
I don't understand the vegetable protein.
I guess just in general, combined ground meat with vegetable protein.
Ground meat and vegetables, definitely. Sorry, it's the protein and the vegetables, because the protein is the ground meat. That's why I'm a little confused. But yes, ground meat and vegetables is a great option, definitely. Soup, stews, perfect. And that will actually balance out the person who was talking about the acidity. If you have ground red meat and vegetables, the vegetables will actually help to balance out a little bit the acidity in it.
I think this person was asking about, kind of, like vegetable protein, like alternatives to meat.
Oh, those, sorry, it took me a second. I was like, vegetable protein.
Like, it would be a good idea to combine to kind of replace maybe some of the meat with some vegetable protein and kind of mix it together.
Again, I'm not a huge fan of those Beyond Meat things like that. There are other ways, as I mentioned at the beginning, of getting protein from vegetables and grains. So you would combine your grains and legumes, but those vegetable proteins I would kind of stay clear of, because again, there's so much stuff in them that we just don't know what it is and what it does.
Okay.
No, not cheap.
Right.
So if you think of the price of that and the price of a few veggies and a piece of meat, or a few veggies and some grains or pulses, then you're better off that way.
All right. So I think I'm gonna cut off the questions there. It was a great session and a great Q&A session. So I'm just gonna do a little outro speech here.
Okay.
So hi again, everyone. So I just want to thank every participant here for participating in today's webinar. Obviously the Ottawa branch and I personally would like to thank Susan for an excellent presentation. And we'd also like to thank Meg Stickl-Kroeker, who wasn't here today, but helped organize this session. So thank you, Meg. And so a reminder to look out for a follow-up email, which will include information on how to access today's recording. It will also include some information about AIM Fitness, contact information for Susan if you have some extra questions for her, and some extra info and resources that Susan would like to share with the people that registered for today's session. One last thing is you can invite non-members to attend our webinars and try us out as guests. And we have all upcoming webinars placed on our Ottawa branch website, so you can browse that to see what's upcoming, and we'll make sure to add a link to our website in our follow-up email as well. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Susan. Thank you. See you at our next webinar.
Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a nice day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.